And that giant dog, knowing he could eat that little chihuahua in one bite, sits there and shows amazing power by simply, and amazing self-control by simply doing nothing. Because it's in his power to chew that little dog up. But he doesn't. He does nothing. And for some, I'm sorry, bro, forgive me about the chihuahua. For some, it comes across as lazy. It comes across as weak, scared. They look at the dog and say, that's crazy. It shouldn't put up with that. But Jesus said in Luke chapter 6, verse 29, unto him that slaps you upside the head, turn the other cheek and let him slap that one. And to him that takes away your cloak or your scarf, give him your coat also. Now in the day we live in, you tell somebody that Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Or if somebody comes up and steals your hat, give them your coat too. That appears to people nowadays, they say that's crazy. That looks like weakness. That looks like you're scared to death. They want your hat, they demand your hat, and you're like, oh, here, go ahead and take my coat too. That looks like weakness. Somebody comes up and slaps you. We are taught to automatically fight back. And to be honest this morning, I do have to be honest, I'm the preacher. Chances are, if you came up to me this morning and you slapped me, I would slap you back. That's just reflex. I mean, you come up to me and slap me, I would probably smack you back. I need to learn meekness. He's working on me. It would be awful hard for somebody to slap me and me stand there and turn the other cheek. If you can do that, that's powerful. That's not weakness. That's power. And so if you understand what Jesus is telling us, he's saying there's a huge amount of power in being able to take a hit and then simply turn the other cheek instead of stooping down to the level of the people that's doing the hitting and hitting them back. I mean, when we first hear Jesus saying when somebody slaps you, turn the other cheek, we're thinking, that's crazy. That's weakness. But it's not weakness. Now Jesus, he told Peter that in the garden. And then they left there. And Jesus went through all of that suffering silently, knowing that it was in his control, in his power, to call down 12,000 angels or even more and wipe all of those people off the face of the earth. And yet he didn't. Now, while those people thought they were conquering him by beating him and whipping him and hurting him and killing him, they weren't. They weren't in control all along. He was. It was in his power to stop it. And yet he chose not to because he had a greater... The truth is, I believe with all my heart that we would have a lot less broken homes if people would practice self-control, meekness. Biting their tongue, controlling their emotions. I mean, what would happen if husbands and wives would learn to respond with a soft answer? Think of the violence in the workplace that would never happen if people would learn to be self-controlled and would respond with a soft answer instead of an insult that leads to something worse. What would happen? Meekness, its power. And the man who can respond to insults with a soft answer, with a smile, with a word of forgiveness is the man that is the most powerful. That, I believe, this morning is what our country needs. I believe our country needs it. Political leaders, business leaders, church leaders, husbands, wives, employees. that will be meek. Meek. People who understand that just because you have the power to talk back, you don't talk back. Just because you have the power to retaliate, don't mean you have to. Just because you're a pastor, a manager, a supervisor, the boss, that doesn't mean you can't work with the common people. It doesn't mean you're too good to clean the toilets every now and then. Just because you have the power doesn't mean you have to abuse the power. Just because you're the big dog doesn't mean you need to chew up the little dog.
Right.
Let's bring that down to where we live right now. Just because your relationship with God is going well, don't mean you need to condemn those who are struggling. Just because you know it all doesn't mean you need to go around and tell everybody else how to do it. Meekness. It's power under control. It's learning to hold our tongue. You know, just because we know a bad story about somebody doesn't mean we need to tell it. Just because we know a fault that somebody else has doesn't mean we need to talk about it. Meekness. It's power under control. Yeah, you've got the power. You got the knowledge. You got the mouth. You could spread the news that so-and-so has done so-and-so, and they've been doing this and doing that, and they've got this fault and that fault. Power's in your mind, in your mouth. You can pick up the telephone, tell everybody. Type it on Facebook. You got power to let the whole world know. I don't mean we need to. You get the point? Meekness. Just because you got the power to do something doesn't mean you always need to do it. Meekness.